Hello, everyone. We're here with another episode of My Awakening, and today I have Cindy from Cosmic Antenna sharing her story on her awakening journey. Hi, Cindy. How are you?
I'm great, Sylvie. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to have you here finally.
I know. It's taken 6 months, I think, hasn't it? We're right at six
Oh,
months.
it feels like a lifetime, honestly. 6 months
Yeah,
is like I was somebody else. That was
absolutely.
another
Me either.
lifetime.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, what events led to your awakening?
Oh boy. Um, the most recent awakening would have been looking at chemtrails. I know that sounds so weird, but looking up at the sky and seeing something that didn't seem right. And what I did when I saw it is I took pictures. I'm a photographer, and that was what I ran to my camera. I took a picture of it. I looked at it. I thought, what is dropping out of the line? It just was something I was not attuned to one day, and one day I was.
Mm.
And that was about three years ago. I had children, so I was really consumed with their life. And after I saw this, I took it to my best friend. She was clueless. She had no idea what it was and didn't care, didn't seem to be interested. So I took it to Facebook, where a lot of people go, and I posted my picture and said, "What the H is this?" And here's my background. I have a lot of pilots from childhood in my background.
Mhm.
And one of the first people that came back was my best friend's sister. And
Mhm.
she was an Air Force pilot, retired commercial pilot, and I could go on, but I could tell you she's been on the cover of certain things because of her status, magazines. And one day I looked up and saw somebody I'd gone to high school with on the cover of one of the magazine because she had gone to war. All right.
Mm.
Enough said there. I won't go into any other detail, but I saw her there. I'm going, hey, and I wasn't even into the Gulf War, but she comes back to me on Facebook. So I've identified her enough and says, oh, it looks like it's maybe it's one of those air shows. So she gives me one of the air shows. And when we were kids, we went to air shows and we saw the little
Mhm.
trails coming out. And I thought, there is no way in heck she thinks this is the air show. I mean,
Right.
there's just no way. I know her.
Your
And
gut
then
was telling you different.
Well, and there, okay. And so then another fella came in, and he was a kid I went to high school with, and he happened to live in the county I live in currently. And he comes back and he says something of the same. And then there's this fella, I'm not naming anybody in this scenario, but they're
Mhm.
men from my childhood that, because I grew up in a community where my next door neighbor was Air Force retired.
Mhm.
uh, I can't remember what his title was, but Colonel, we called him Colonel, right?
Mhm.
And then every single person that I could even reach between 12 and graduating from high school were pilots. So they
Wow.
all had they all had experience in the air.
Right.
So when I made this question to Facebook, I had tons of, your parents were even my parents weren't there, but some of my friends' parents were on Facebook, the
Mhm.
grandparents showing off.
Right.
And one of the I mean, this guy is my dad's age, so he must have been 78 when he came. He said this to me, and he gives me something. And I remember sitting around as a child listening to this man, and
Mhm.
every single one of their answers did not match who I knew them to be.
Mm.
And
I
it
see.
didn't even make good sense. Like I started looking at it. So I had this ability to know when people lie. So like
I
I
have
haven't
that
always
too. Yep.
I so when I saw them kind of like giving me their little, I went, oh, oh, oh. I even blocked one of the guys because he kept after me and like watched me. And it was the older fella. And at
Mhm.
that point I'm like, that's not cool. That's not cool. Cause now I feel like I'm even being kind of harassed by this guy because I started doing research after that. I started looking at the sky, I started looking at what was going on up there, taking lots of pictures, kind of processing it for myself. That was it. And then I went to YouTube. I had a friend come to me and well, I had my best friend introduced me to someone else who said, my best friend told me, I don't think I'm doing this very well. Am I explaining my story?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Am
No.
I? I,
Yeah.
I, I hope I'm not running,
No, no,
around
no.
in circles.
And that's how it is. In the beginning, you're just like, oh my God, oh my God. Do you see this? Do you see this? Because I like with the Mandela effect, I'm like, something's weird. That wasn't there
Right.
before. and now it's like this, and nobody sees it but me. I started seeing
Right.
sparkles. I started seeing angel numbers. Nobody noticed any of this crap but me. And I'm thinking,
Right.
I'm a weirdo.
Right. It does. It makes you
That's
think,
why I
what's
do these episodes so that everybody knows they're not weirdos and we're all the same. Just a
yeah.
little
And
different flavor, but it's the same.
and the way we're even triggered to waking up and going back to sleep is just so we can get it in small doses, so we can
Right,
take, that final,
right,
perhaps,
right,
coming out party, really, of who you are if
right,
you've been working on it.
right.
So, so I got a lot of flack there, and I did my own research,
Mhm.
met this female who started, who was really well versed. She was like about 5 years in front of me, but studying the Nag Hammadi.
Diligent. Hmm.
Yes, Nag Hammadi. She had read the Bible cover to cover. That's what triggered her, actually. She read the Bible cover to cover, got to that verse in I think it's Genesis, where it pretty much says that they're aliens. We've got some aliens here. And, she tied that into her experience here in the South, because it's, Bible Belt. And she came into my reality, and she had gone through finding out what she found out, and she went into survival mode, packing up everything,
Oh,
hunkering down,
right.
single person. So she came to it sometimes with that, like, I've been there, I've done that, I've grown out of that, but still with this data, she's just brilliant. So she starts pointing out things that are in my story. We all have a story, we all have a pattern that's coming out of this experience, and hopefully you're noticing it. And
Mhm.
that's what started happening to me at a very, very young age. So I don't know where to pick up, but that's what triggered my current awakening, looking at the sky, and then realizing that hardly anybody that I knew, like you said, nobody
Yeah.
was hardly noticing anything. This other friend of mine does. We're kind of at different junctures about who we think we are. There's a lot of there's in my life, I've always felt like there's been something telling me what I am, and it just never matched what other people told me I was. We get
Right.
told how we should, be acting in this world, and you go through a religious upbringing that gives you this flavor that you think you're all protected in, and if you do good in this little protection, all will work out, but it just doesn't.
Right.
But for me, was from a young age, I started playing with crystals, just collecting them, and
Really?
I realized while I was young that I love pink quartz, and I was really Virgo, just needing that
Mhm.
calm. So I was always
Mhm.
attracted to the things that I need. It's almost like,
Right.
I compare it, not like I'm this, but like the Dalai Lama comes, or those beings that come into their lifetimes, and they know what they need, to do their work, and they sit down and they grab their tools. Well, at a
You
young age,
magnetize it to you and you don't even realize it's a tool.
it's
You
your
think it's
tool.
just a pretty rock.
Correct. And my mom was like, "Wow, look at her." And it was always pink quartz, pink quartz. And we would go to
Wow.
stores, and I wanted more pink quartz. And it wasn't like today where you had a million of them. I probably had two or three, because
That's
you
a
just
lot, actually. That's a lot.
for a child, but I
Yeah.
had a nice big stone, and then I had it for a long time, kind of followed me around, and then I lost it, and I found a really cool, what was it? A arrowhead. I lived in like Cherokee country. So I
Hmm.
found a cool crystal arrowhead. And when I
Wow.
found it, I took it to school, and I'm like, "Hey, look at this." And they're like, "Oh, Indians, they never made those. They didn't make it. That's not an arrowhead." And I'm like, "Really? Golly, it looks like an arrowhead to me." So I kept it, a stone. It was quartz crystal. Long
Hmm.
story short, I go to the mounds here south of Atlanta. There's Indian mounds here,
Hmm.
like they have all the way up the Appalachian, and into Ohio, and all the way up there. And I find out they're all over. There's this display there, and they're all
Wow.
over. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. So there, where I was growing up, in that part of Georgia, they said it. The science teacher said, "No way, that's not that." But over here, where the mounds are, where they've,
Mm.
we don't know if there's giants in there or whatever. They're
Wow.
like the mounds that are. There's some all the way up the, what is it? The Serpent Mound in Ohio that shows the serpent. Do you know anything about the
Oh,
Serpent
no.
Mounds?
No.
Okay, there's Indian mounds all over America. We have
Hmm.
giants in our
Right.
history.
Right.
Just we're riddled with it, and we're lied to
Mhm.
about, where are they today? And now I'm lost on that,
Right.
but I won't.
Right. So
So
how
anyway,
did you get into metaphysics? Did you always have an interest before you were awake, like as a kid or as a teen?
I don't think I did. I was pretty religiously stamped. You're going to be reading these books. You're going to
Mm.
be thinking this way. I mean, I was really put into the matrix, I think, to find a husband, to
Mhm.
not have a career. When I'd come up with careers to I don't even want to go into it,
Yeah,
but
to
the
be
career,
subservient and weak.
yes. Well, just when I wanted to be a physicist, so when I'd come up with, oh, I want to be a physicist, and they go, really? And it wouldn't matter what the grades were. It wouldn't matter what,
Mhm.
the skill set. I'm making A's in physics and making,
Mhm.
not F's, but C's in English. And, they're always wanting to put the girls over here, and where I was weak,
Right.
they didn't.
Yeah.
And parents too, they want you to fit into the mold where you don't stick out and you're like
Right.
everybody else. And I was never
Right.
like everybody else. So that was probably the problem,
That's the
you know,
biggest clue.
the biggest clue.
Yeah.
And so when did I get into metaphysics would have been, in my opinion, right after my mother, hang on, no, would have been in like 85. I had a friend introduce me to a lady who was an astrologer, and she sat down and said, hey, what's your sign? And I told her, and she looks up a few things, and then she starts rattling. I think she had an ephemeris. She absolutely did. And she looks across, and I see all these signs and these numbers, and she starts saying things to me, and I'm going, oh, how does she know? Is that her?
You're
What is
reading
this
my
all about?
soul.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
is this all? And I had always read my horrible scope, as I call it, and she
Mhm.
told me enough that I picked up the book by Hickey on astrology. I can't think of her first name right now. Best astrology book ever, Isabel
Really?
Hickey,
Mhm.
and it's called Astrology. She's an old timer, just real simple. Read through that, started doing charts. I did charts back when you had to do the math and your logs and all that in order to create the
Mhm.
chart, because I was great at math. So that was a good slip in for me. And metaphysics. So I ended up right after that in a situation where I was going through a divorce in
Mhm.
85, and I was moving to Colorado because I had picked up a job there. And the weird thing is, right after I decided to leave my ex,
Mhm.
I guess I have to roll back to his life to say, when did metaphysics start happening? I didn't start studying metaphysics until mid 80s, for sure, studying.
Mhm.
But life was taking this course it was introducing me
Right.
to
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
pe- people that would mess with my mind so much. Like, okay, when I met my husband, he was in a band, he was on stage, and everyone's going to say, oh, it's just a come on. It wasn't. But it was the first time I had ever been in a bar in Atlanta, and I was with a friend who had graduated from Georgia, and we were drinking margaritas. Probably the first time I had ever had a margarita. I think I was sitting there going, "Ooh, it's a margarita," and I'm old enough to drink. Woo me! And this fella's playing a saxophone on stage, and he kind of comes over and he's slinking through, and you know, I wasn't into that type of guy, and he says, he said, I had to come and talk to you. And he's shaking hands to everybody because this was a club he was very known at.
Mhm.
And he comes over to the table, and I'm there with him, and we're little lifeguards. We're just like, young girls. And he says, when I looked over at you, and this wasn't a come on, I learned about this later. He said, your face went back and forth. Have you ever talked to people that they can,
Whoa.
well, like gurus, like if you look into a guru, if you learn to meditate with a guru, which I've done
Mhm.
before,
Uh-huh.
and you look into their eyes, you do like a face meditation, and you lose focus, and you can see another face come through. Like that's a very common
Ah.
and experience, but I didn't know that at that time. So he shows up, he says
And what
this,
does that mean? Seeing the
well,
other face? Is that your higher self or what is that?
well, well, hang on. What he tells me
Okay.
is he says, so this is the first I've laid eyes on him. He says,
Yeah.
when I looked across the room, he said, your face changed into my sister's. And I went, whoa. So, and I was like, well, okay, well, I'm just like, and he had just gotten through a divorce. It was weird. And I'm a 20-year-old, and he pulls
Mhm.
up a seat, and he's just Mr. Smooth, because he's in
Mhm.
this style of life that I am never seen, talking
Right.
about being tempted. And I was more than tempted because I married him in 2.5 months.
Mhm.
We had a
Wow.
very, very, the triggering
Whirlwind.
of, well, it wasn't whirlwind. It was triggering events of our past lives
Oh,
or my
wow.
past life. And I was completely unskilled with even understanding what a past life might be. I wasn't
Mhm.
indoctrinated that way.
Right.
But long story short, when we decided it was either break up or get married, because it just turned out that way, I
Mhm.
went to his family's home
Mhm.
in Oklahoma and met his family. And when I started meeting his family, it was really creepy because this guy had just gotten divorced. They should have hated me. I mean, the whirlwind of it didn't make sense for anybody.
Right.
Didn't
Mhm.
make sense for my family. I ended up getting married on my dad and my stepmother's anniversary, and they were very happily married. And I didn't even know it. I said, I think we're getting married next Sunday. And they went, oh, sorry, anniversary. And I went, oh, okay,
That's
is that
funny.
okay with you? And they were like, they didn't know him. I mean,
Right.
it was crazy.
Taboo to the max.
It was so taboo. So my grandpa married, and I come from a line of preachers, of course, just
Mhm. Yeah.
riddled and on both sides. So who's going to marry you, your dad or your grandpa? My mother shows up. All these people are here. It's all welcomed into the family. But I get to his family, and it was creepy, Sylvia. Kind of like I get around them, and they all love me. Like in a weird way, and it's love. I mean,
Wow.
I can feel the love, but they're just like something's going on there that I can't put my finger on. But I'm, taking it in. I'm like, and David's going, wow, they really love you. And I'm going, I can't figure it out. I go to his mom's house and meet them. Same creepiness is there, and I say creepy because when you come into contact with your past life people,
Mm.
they're picking up a flavor of you that you've
Right.
been shut off from. I was completely
Right.
shut up from. What happened to David and I that made us take the turn to marriage was that we just didn't have all of the pieces maybe that we needed to connect to. Maybe I needed.
Mhm.
So long story short, I know I'm off here. Where we were moving into, I meet his parents.
Mhm.
And they do the same thing, and they show me some pictures, memorabilia around their house, and I look around and nothing seems familiar. But these
Mhm.
people have this force of love that I have never seen in a group. And it's not like people that just love people.
Right.
There's attraction, there's this magnetic thing that I can
Right.
feel penetrating me.
Right.
So, and I don't know what it is. So I start going through, well, the first night there, did I tell this story? Because I know we talked about
No.
some of this today. So the first night there, where David and I are in bed together and just laying there, it's just, we're going to sleep. We're at he has elderly parents too. So
Mhm.
his parents had him at 40, so they're very old, and everybody's worried if they're going to die. So we want to make sure we go and visit, and everybody knows everyone. That's
Right.
common things to do. So we go to bed that night, and I had the strangest dream. There's these, like, remember the paintings? You may not have ever seen them because you're younger than I am, that are the black velvet. Remember
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
portraits people would do of black velvet?
Right.
And there's this blonde girl and David when he was a really little boy, and
Mhm.
this teenager girl who
Mhm.
I think they're, let me do the math a second. They're about 15 years apart, his
Okay.
older sister.
Mhm.
So there's this picture of her, and she's blonde, and she's typical, when was she born? In the, doesn't matter, the 40s. And
Mhm.
so she's grown up in the 50s, and I'm looking at her going, wow. And I have this trip thing in my head my whole life. I always had best friends that had blue eyes and blonde hair
Mhm.
from childhood. Everybody that entered in my life had blue eyes and blonde hair. And I'd always think, why don't I have blue eyes and blonde hair?
Mhm.
David had blue eyes and blonde hair. His whole family has, this blue-eyed and blonde. So, there it is, this
Right.
thing. So I'm in this dream, and this energy comes to me. It's just a dream, and I used to say it's like a witch, but it was like this energy of play. This person was on a pole, like you'd put in a that you'd like an acrobat would spin on.
Right.
So this being gets on there, and it's spinning, and it's showing up, and it's showing me that it's this woman, but this woman I know is me. Like in this dream, all this plays out, but there's this
Oh, you're being
play of,
revealed. Mhm.
this is almost like a vortex of energy spins into this room. And I
Right.
see these pictures of the house like it was then. The house, like he talked about the face, the
Mhm.
house I was in took on a transformation or something in the
Okay.
dream, not in reality.
Right.
And I get how this house looks. So I wake up in the morning, and I'm telling David the dream, and I'm sure I've had, it's 30 years ago. This is the
Mhm.
essence of it. I don't
What
remember
what
either.
was his reaction?
Well, he said, that's kind of weird. He said, because this house was remodeled, and it doesn't look anything like it did back in that time, and the way I
Mhm.
was describing it was exactly the way it was.
Whoa, that is so cool. You were shown.
Well, so I'm in their house, or I'm connected to this energy that's obviously his sister's, something's going on
Right,
there. And I don't, I processed that for years. And he
right.
tells me when he was in this room or this particular part of the room, he's levitated, whether that should be out or not.
Wow,
That
that's
there's
cool.
something about this field in their house, perhaps, that had, who knows, I don't know.
A
But I had this,
portal.
it,
Yeah, there's a
it was one,
portal.
could have been a portal, but it was one of the things I had never had experienced before. I had weird
Wow.
dreams, but I learned about his sister, and his sister had a story. We all have stories, right? So
Right.
her story was she was killed by a train car accident. All right.
Wow.
So she was married to this fella, and they had just gotten married. They had been married less than a month, and she was in a train car accident. And he lived, and she died.
Wow.
And so we were going to her grave one day after church. When I ended up visiting their house at least 2 or 3 times. I know 3 or
Mhm,
4 times, because I know I was
mhm.
there 3 times, getting to know them, and they'd show me pictures of her. And this woman would do things that I did. She had like pictures, mannerisms, and pictures that I did. So I was always like,
Mhm.
oh, that's weird. And then they gave me this quilt, and I looked at the quilt, and it was like things that I kind of knew as a child I was attracted to were all on this quilt. So I'd go. So
Wow.
it was back to that Dalai Lama thing that I say, when you're presented these things and you just know they're yours,
Yes.
like the crystal,
Wow.
the quartz crystal, the rose, so in my experience, that's how metaphysics really was playing out in my life. It wasn't first in a
Wow.
book, it was in the Bible, it was in whatever I was taught in my religion, but it was looking into my religion and seeing kind of when I looked at my religion, what they said didn't match what I felt
What you knew, right?
and what I knew, and not with all of the preachers. My great grandfather was a preacher that went out for the people. He changed
Mm,
churches for the people. And when
wow.
I felt his vibration, his was always pure. And when I
Mhm.
felt other ministers, perhaps it's not like they were bad and awful, but they were different. There was a
Yeah.
different resonance, and I identified with the differences as a young child. So I've had, so go back to this young lady that died. So as a child, I had a dream reoccurring all my life of being chased down the train tracks.
Wow.
I'd wake up going, like from 5 on, I'd wake
That's
up and
amazing. That's incredible.
it was so freaky. And then it wore off. It didn't last my whole life, but it was always very strange. So that to me was the
You had
connection.
bleed through. You had bleed through. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other weird thing is her husband's name was the same as my dad's name, the same as my brother's name. So
Wow.
patterns are just
Yeah.
part of what you notice. And if you have
Mhm.
that, I think we give ourselves patterns if we're the type of person who sees those sort of things.
Right.
We all have
The
different
clues.
clues, but you have to see your clues. You have to digest the clues, wonder why you have them, and move forward from there. So
Right.
that was the story, and he knows it. But long story short, we couldn't stay together. Um,
Well,
he
he was a
toured.
catalyst for you. He catalyzed you. He will.
Oh, completely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I read the Course in Miracles. I was exposed to with him. I was also exposed to Dianetics, which I know that's taboo, the Scientologist people.
Mhm,
But I
mhm.
read that cover to cover and felt that it had some merit
There
for
is
sure.
absolutely. It kind of like a lot of things. There, well, growing up, my mom would say the devil mixes truth with lies, which I feel that's how a lot of things are. It's
Yes,
the truth is hidden within the deception,
yes, it is completely.
and your knowing tells you what the truth is.
That's right. Yes,
It
you,
resonates.
it does resonate, and the better you take care of your temple, the more able you are
To discern.
to discern or pick up, to receive,
Yeah, right.
and to know that you're receiving something that can be discerned. Because I think we can receive a lot of stuff,
Oh,
and that
absolutely.
discernment, and then knowing was that to turn you the wrong way, or to give choice.
Right. Yeah, because a lot of people get hijacked.
Yeah, They do. They do.
Wow. Wow. Did you lose friends and family when you were waking up within the past 3 years? Did you start losing relationships?
I don't have a big circle. I purposely don't, because for me, being an empath or being around people, if I don't put the right people around me,
Yeah.
there's a certain flavor that I just can't hardly not pick up.
Right.
And I'm getting stronger, I suppose, but it's an unnecessary force of resistance that you have to be in when you're trying to hold your own with other people who are in the field, who are in the habits, of eating on cycles and
Right.
doing things on patterns. I'm really a non, I don't, I can do routines. I've done corporate America. I know that. I
Yeah, no,
started,
I understand what you're saying. Because I'm like that too. I'm very quality versus quantity.
yes.
So I don't like, oh, everybody's my best friend. No, I don't do that. It's
Yeah.
like, because I value it, like it means something to me. So if I consider you a friend, that's like, you're a friend. And like, I
Right.
will move mountains for you. But
Yes.
that doesn't mean that those people don't turn out to be not what I thought they were. I mean, they do. Sometimes
Of
they
course.
stay, sometimes they leave. But what I've noticed is a pattern with upon people awakening, myself included, is that relationships tend to dissolve, fall away, marriages break up,
Right. Well,
friends stop talking to you. Just the frequency, the vibration doesn't match anymore, and you repel
right.
each other. So
Right.
I'm curious. Did you have any of that?
Yes, absolutely. I know they don't want to hear that, but they know it too. I mean, I
Yeah.
had somebody reply to me this summer and just say, I know I was a jerk. And didn't put it that way, but seriously, somebody that should have probably always been there for me, because I've tried to be there for them,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it was really difficult for them to have conversations with me, because our conversations weren't even in the same book anymore.
Right. Right.
So there, even if I were speaking to her about something,
They
it
can't
wasn't.
hear you. They
They
can't
can't hear.
hear you.
I've
No,
seen
and
them.
it's
I've
so
seen them,
sad.
and I've seen them fall asleep. Seen them be in front of you and just go like doze off
Oh,
multiple times.
yeah.
Which,
Yeah. I think that the matrix, the programming takes over and they're
yeah,
not there anymore.
it's happened with my kids. It was a real challenge to break through that something with
The
them, but we
programming.
have the
Hmm.
programming.
Well,
They were
I think it's the choice is at a higher level. I don't think it's conscious. I think it's the oversoul that decides, like, I mean, there is free will to an extent, but I think that kind of like either you're on the same radio frequency or you're not. That, like, pregnant, not pregnant. There's
yeah.
no in between.
Right. Right. Oh, it's
So,
true. I mean, you could have both feet in and both sides, but you're not going to be able to well, who knows? I don't,
you know
I
what? I
would,
think when you reach a certain level, like, I think, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm higher than anybody. No, but I'm saying once you've done a certain amount of work, I do feel that those of us that have reached a certain octave, for lack of a better word, we can dip back down, and that's the scary part. Be careful when you dip, because you can stay down there. You can get
absolutely.
stuck, and
Yeah.
and then so like it takes a lot of work to come back to where you belong. But see, it's like you want to save everybody and you can't.
No, no, you can't. And I used to be that person. I always saw the potential. It's real
Right.
easy if you're an empath to see a person's potential, especially if you care for them.
Yeah.
And I mean, just for the record, because we did talk about what had been going on with me for a little while. I mean,
Hmm.
just for the record, the way my empathic nature works, some people need to make that known, is I don't okay.
I think I know what you're trying to say. I know when you're lying. Like, you can tell me whatever story you want to tell me, but I already know. I can feel you concocting the words to try to con me. Is that
Yeah.
it? Because
Well, it is.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I can feel it, and it's kind of like, number one, it's like, you think I'm that stupid, like you're insulting my intelligence, and then number two, it hurts your heart because you had high hopes for them, and you're
Right.
like, oh, you're not
Yeah.
like me.
Well, and that's been the hardest thing for me because I do realize my nature is very different than others. I think that over the course of my life, and we talked about, we can't go into all of this. You wanted sort of the
Right.
overview. This is
Mhm.
the simple overview.
Right.
There have been things in my life where people have come in and have deceived me, and my gut was telling me, but the logic of this matrix and the way they want you to believe what we're being told and the people in your life,
Mhm.
there are people that might walk through your life, especially if you're on this path and
Right.
you're working hard to fix your own resonance. You're trying
Right.
to work on your temple. You're trying to help others. I'm a Reiki person. I've been Reiki 3 since 94. So I
Mhm.
spent a lot of time in, prayer meditation. I've done pyramid work. I've been basically meditating in a pyramid for over 25 years in
Wow.
my mind. It's a
Mhm.
mental sort of meditation
Right.
alignment, and it's been very powerful. I think it's helped me when I've used it. I don't use it sometimes because it's so powerful.
We need to
Sometimes,
do a show about that. Let's do a show about that.
yeah, we won't go into it tonight, but all of that is, I think, important for us to be doing, to realizing we are as much as there are, the way I like to put it, the Oz, the people, messing with us,
Right.
we have as much power within ourselves if we become our own alchemists. Because when we take those elements, the fire, earth, air, and water, those things can heal us. I mean, we are a
Right.
machine. In some ways, I hate to put it this way because people get offended, but I think we're made like a machine. I mean, they knew what they were doing when they created this system, this body
Well, it's
system,
a vessel. It's a vessel.
the
Yeah.
vessel.
Mhm.
And how they're using it now is doing everything they can to reduce its ability to heal, um, to expand its brain, any part of us.
Right. They don't want you to get out of the cage.
No, they want to keep us on the and being used. So
Right.
we can, and that's what I'm telling my children now. I'm like, figure out what you want to do on this planet. Don't sign those damn loans. Forget the school loans. Get
Right.
what you need. Go where you need to go. Be who you want to be, but don't take a dang job and don't sign all those loans and think that title or this, that, or the other is what it's all about. Because the matrix leads you into this false sense of reality. Buy the house, get the job, get this, get that, get it all.
Yeah.
And we have it all.
Right.
We have everything we need right here. We just need to put the elements in, see, hone ourselves, get within.
Mhm.
And between the, just what's
Yeah, remember
happening,
who you are. Just remember who you are.
remember
Yeah.
who you are
Do you
and
have
treat
a
it that
lot
way.
do you have a lot of paranormal experiences other than those really cool ones you've already shared with David?
Uh, I had this one thing happened that was really kind of bizarre in my prayer circles, when I was a kid, because I questioned everything that was, how it felt in the prayer circle. It's good.
Mhm.
It's great
Mhm.
to be with people in prayer. Um, but that whole God connection, it always seemed like, in my church, they talk to the men. God speaks
Oh,
to the man.
absolutely.
And doesn't speak to the woman. And sadly, my father still has that lineage of his church that he falls under, that has the most extreme, that you only follow the man. And so
Mm.
that dichotomy has been within my structure too. And I've
Mhm.
completely lost what the question was. And I know that,
Paranormal experiences.
oh, paranormal. So I'm in a church camp when I don't know, in high school. And I thought this was weird. Two things are weird, and I know you can't go on forever. But I was in a circle and it was raining. You get out of bed and you want to go back to bed when it's raining and you're camping and it's muddy. So
Mhm.
we get up there, we have to do a prayer circle. We're doing it. I'm probably grumpy just because I'm out in the mud, closing my eyes, and I'm talking to the field. I didn't look at it that way then, and I'm just like talking to the field. Back then was like, dear God, if you're really real in here, you will make, because you're a defiant child, going,
Right.
you'll make it stop raining around this circle. And it was issued that way, and by goodness, bam, it stopped.
Nice.
And so these
Wow.
prayers are going along, and I'm in a circle, so I know that this isn't me.
Right.
I understand it's the field.
Well, the energy's amplified. Can you describe what the field is? Explain for those that don't know what the field is.
I look at the field as everything before me. Right here is my field. My field is
Mm.
within my field. You know, it's my field within the field of this computer, and the field within your circle can either heal you or, in my,
Whoa, that's like a
so,
bucket. It's like a bucket. Your bucket's either clean water, clean
yes,
energy,
yes,
or
yes.
dirty water, dirty energy.
Or running on the wrong matrix ideas, or running on the right system of ideas, and
Wow.
healing or not healing. So
Wow.
that's sort of how I perceive what's happening. So
So
my
what's the other paranormal thing that happened? That's
well,
pretty incredible.
I was in an accident in New York City, well, on the Hudson in 98. So I had my 20th anniversary of it. And I was on a water taxi, which was like a, what is it? A pontoon boat. And it had these sides. It shouldn't have been on the river, for one thing. It had these sides where it had caging with rope. You know, have
Mhm.
you ever seen a pontoon where they put
Right.
that up just so you have it a little higher? So
Mhm.
this had a top, it had a captain, and guess it had about 26 people on the boat at the time. And we were coming from Tappan Zee, Nyack, New York, going over to Tarrytown. And we had shot over there, had lunch, and we had reservations. We were
Mhm.
the last ones on the boat because we were drinking. I was with the Irish. And we were having our little, toddies after our dinner and looking at the lake. And we get there last minute, and they let extra people get on the boat, but it was our reservation. So there was this moment where we could have gotten ourselves out of the ego, and waited for the next
Yeah.
shuttle, which would have been about an hour and a half from there. But we were kind of aggravated. I mean, I had would have been another mother-in-law, but we didn't stay together. But really, somebody I was very close with, traveled with,
Mhm.
and I wanted to make sure she was. And I was kind of like, but we sat down and we took our seats and we snuggled together, and my ex was, standing over his mom, and this boat started to sink right in the middle of the Hudson.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it started tipping the front end. There was this little child up front, and there was a chain across the front, and a little bit of water started seeping in.
Oh my
And
goodness.
there were so many children on this shuttle. There were at least 3 families with very small children. So one family had 3 babies under 5.
Mhm.
One family had at least 2. There was a couple with 1 on each, and then this child up front. Those are the 3 I remember
Mhm.
vividly. So there may have been more, but there were that many children on the boat, and it was apparent. And this child was running back and forth, and I think she kind of caused it, but we could have sunk anyhow. And they weren't even paying attention to her. The water's coming in, and I'm looking at the water going, somebody get that child, somebody get that child. Somebody take her and put her in their lap,
Right,
that
right.
thing. So the water comes up, and people start jumping overboard,
Oh my
you know,
goodness.
and I'm on the front, and my boyfriend is trying to get his mom off board. And I go into total shock, shut down. I mean, I'm a
Wow.
photographer, and every bit of the equipment I have and own, 90% of it, thousands of dollars, are in the back of on my backpack.
Oh my
And
God.
so I'm holding on to this thing like this, and I'm freezing. Like, I've had cameras since I was 12 years old, and I'm going, and I couldn't let go. So I went into this freeze thing. This thing tips, it bobs, it tips, and it flips over. And
Wow.
and while I slip off the front. I'm
Mhm.
slipping into the water, and all this activity around me, and I'm sensing it. I see it, but I've just gone into total feel, and I don't know what to
Mhm.
do because I'm not going to let go of my camera.
Wow.
I start slipping into the water and I feel like I'm gonna bob. Something's gonna bob in and down, and I start
Mhm.
sinking. And as I sink, something says, "You better take a breath." But it's not like that. There's a serious voice that comes through,
Right, right.
and
A knowing, and you feel the chill of it. Yeah.
well, it says, "Do this." It's all very specific.
Right.
It's like something's on a microphone going, "Drop the bag
Whoa.
now. You've got to drop the bag." And then it starts to specifically, and I'm in a shock zone, like I'm in feeling zone. When I look back, that's what I'm doing. I'm feeling all of this terror. that's
Right.
happening. And I don't know what to do because the reality is what's happening does not register on anything that's in my reality. So
Well,
I'm
also not just that, but you're an empath, so you're absorbing all their crap on top
right,
of your crap, and you're just literally drowning, for lack of a better word,
right.
with their crap.
And I'm having a baptism of fear.
Oh my goodness.
That's what it felt like. I was being
Wow.
baptized in that fear. So there's this weirdness going on. So I sink in and I drop the bag. Finally, I just drop the bag and this voice tells me what to do. So this cage comes over me. And as it's over me, all this has happened. Now I'm underneath. So as I slipped, this thing came over me. So now it's over me. And I'm a great swimmer. That was the thing. But now it tells me you have to swim down. You have
Mm-hmm.
to swim to your left, you have to
Mm-hmm.
swim up, and you have to swim out way. So it's telling me what to do, and I just start doing it. But the
Wow.
boat's still settling. It's still settling on top of me. All right. So,
Wow.
and it's dark. There's no light. So now there's trapped darkness on top of me, and I swim down, I follow it, and I come to the top of the water, and flipping chaos is just going on. And
Wow.
I'm like this recorder going, I see my ex. I mean, he's my ex now, but I see
Mhm.
him swimming down and pulling people out. They're trapped underneath this boat. I mean, they're
Wow.
going, people that are, didn't go into a flip out are
Mhm.
rescuing as many people that needed help. I had never seen so many miracles happen before us.
Wow.
But before it was over, there was one person trapped under there and he died. And
Wow.
so it was a very serious event. And that was what happened. Something told me how to get out of it, or I would. But the worst part is, for me, it messed with me. I understand people going to war and having something that happens to you so traumatic that you just get
Right.
kind of trapped. Because I don't know if it's because I got baptized in that fear, I changed.
Mm.
Like something, we were talking about this today, having
Right. An impact.
things happen.
Yeah.
I was messed up for many years. My son was 2 years old, I think, when I was on a lake and I was holding him and I couldn't breathe. I realized when
Wow.
I got on the water, and I'm a real water person, whenever I was right after the accident, when I would drive by where the accident was, I would seize up. I would stop breathing. I would,
Wow. So
so for
PTSD. You had
I
PTSD.
Totally. And there was a lawsuit, and I had moved back to Georgia, and I decided not to pursue it. I think they got millions. I'm an idiot. I'm not a materialistic person, and it
Right.
would have been a bother for me to get up and leave my job and go back to go through this. And it was
Mhm.
dumb. Anybody that knows anything about money and works for it knows I probably should have processed that. I didn't realize that when you have it, you don't realize you have it. You
Mhm.
just don't. So
Absolutely.
you live with this broken part of yourself in relationships. You're not showing up with your full potential, and
Right.
it was hard to work through and find out how to become myself again. So that's it.
Right. Right. And
Right.
then to find people that resonate at your frequency, because now your circle gets even smaller.
Right. Yeah. It does. It absolutely does. So, you just keep reaching out, and finding the right people that make
Right.
sense, to your reality, and hope
Right.
that we're on the same mission together. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's what you and I find, that we're working on the same task. We want to be
Absolutely.
of service to humanity in our way of delivering our gifts or explaining what it is to be an empath,
Right.
because it's very difficult for the mainstream mentality, I guess,
Right.
to be around empathic people. However, I think we are on a trip of ascension at some level, and there are
Right.
going to be more and more people. I mean, I'm encouraging my children to reach into those zones of
Me too. Me too. Because we're they're the future. And
they
as
are our
we're
future.
talking about that, a red cardinal just flew into my window and sat in my window
Oh,
like that. Boom. You know,
nice.
me and red cardinals, that's my bird.
Is it?
That's
That's so
my
funny.
spirit animal. Yeah, it visits me in my dreams and in daily life. And that's what got me into QHHT.
You
Uh,
know, it's funny because I haven't told you this, and I would like to add this because one of the tie-ins to you was my best friend just had a session here locally. All right.
mhm.
And she said I could share this with you, so I want to share it with you.
Sure.
And her favorite bird is a cardinal. So when you brought that up, she was flooding into my mind, and I hadn't shared that with you today. But she
Wow,
went to
good.
she went to a practitioner local,
Mm-hmm.
and the session was kind of wonky, and it didn't go as well like it was supposed to, and she had to go somewhere. She was pulled away for an emergency, so her session was like, yeah. And she's a hypnotherapist from the
Mm-hmm.
80s. She did her training, and she was disappointed, but she got some information. So she took that information and she got on her computer, because it was weird stuff, because you've
Mm-hmm.
shared some of your stuff. It's just like, how could this ever be
Right.
real?
Yeah. No, you
How could this
question it. Right.
She was like, there's just no flipping way this is
Yeah.
real. So she gets on the computer and she looks up this place in Michigan, this warehouse that this and it's all there. All of these
Wow.
things that were drawn, that this lady had drawn out. And she was like, Cindy, I really didn't think that this was going to be anything great, like been there, done it in her life.
We
She's
dismiss
I,
everything. We dismiss the miracles. We dismiss the magic. We talk ourselves out of it because we've been
yeah,
programmed like that.
exactly. Well, and she had been to Michigan when I lived there and had met all these people and fallen in love with them. And she
Wow.
was within 6 miles of where she lived in her last lifetime.
Wow.
Should this be her last lifetime? And she had
Mhm.
always wondered why she had not, because I had my early experience. She never understood it, but she supported me. And here was her first nugget. She could look up online and
Proof.
identify where she lived, that there was a real city with
Wow.
these kinds of things going on, and she had a sense for who she was. So she can't wait to get back and do her
Oh, that's
makeover
amazing. That's
session.
so
Yeah, it's
exciting.
pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff I've discovered in doing sessions and surrogate sessions. It's, oh my
Yes,
God, I love it. It's so interesting. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I know we can do so much more, but it's a doorway. Right now, it's very primitive because we really are navigating our way through it and like trying to see
yes,
what we can do. And
right.
it's oh my God, it's so much more. I feel like that's just a tiny, tiny piece of what's yet to come. And maybe
Right.
it's a catalyst for the bigger stuff. But it's so
Mhm.
exciting. And I mean, why would you not want to meet that part of yourself? Because it's always trying to talk to you.
Right.
And not a lot of us, what I've noticed in doing sessions for like really 3D people, they are so used to go, 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 go. And always slaving at work or slaving to shop, to be just consume, consume, consume. And they don't give themselves a moment to just relax. So when they come to me, they're like, they go deep. And I'm like, wow, this person is like starving. Their soul is starving to talk to them. They're starving to
Yes.
relax. And they
Yes.
won't like gift that to themselves because we're made to feel guilty for
Hmm.
for taking care of ourselves. And
Right.
you're, no, don't do that. So what helped you the most when you were going through the most challenging time, if you could give any advice?
Oh, I think my best advice to anybody is to always take care of yourself. And water is
Mm.
I beat that drum all the time, because any kind of problem you have, I think you can program water. I think there's enough evidence. It has the properties that will mold to you. So I don't think there's anything I can say better than what helps anybody is water. Drink purified water. Now, if you can structure it, I have a spinner. I spin water. I have all these devices to keep it in different states. But I think once you get it to that purified state, you can program it. I mean, if you
Yeah, I
pray,
think just by your sheer intention, you can do
yes,
it. You don't need
yes,
any fancy anything. I mean, they're awesome, they help, but with
yes,
your sheer will and intention.
absolutely.
And I think that helps navigate a lot of life, like deciding, you know what, I'm deciding this is great, even though it looks really crappy. I'm deciding it's wonderful. I don't know
Yeah,
how, but I'm just deciding it's wonderful. And sooner or later, I'm going to see what is so wonderful about it. And then it's like the universe says, oh, okay, we're going that way. Reroute. And then you're like, wake up and you're like, holy shit, I did it. I jumped timelines because that one was really shitty.
Right. And I think that we have done that. I mean, I do see that metaphoric way of looking at life, because we're collapsing things that don't work for us any longer, and we're opening ourselves, and sometimes it's painful getting through it. But
Oh yeah.
the best thing I ever did at any point in my life to heal anything that was disturbing me, and there have been plenty, is water.
Wow.
And I've healed my children with an idea of how you use water, and attitudes, and
Yeah, and not just ingesting it, but submerging yourself in it, both. Like
yes.
Drinking and bathing. Even if you don't have access to a swimming pool, your tub.
Yes.
Or
Absolutely.
a bucket with your feet. Like there's more than one way to skin a cat. You don't have to, there's no limitation. Be scrappy. Use your imagination.
That's right. Use water more. Yeah. Bathe, clean, be
Yeah.
ritualistic with it. I mean, take care of yourself. I mean, this water, I heard recently that they figured out there's a new organ in our body, like every place in our body that they haven't identified, which is a ton of space, that is an organ, and it's a fluid or something. So I'm sure I'm not an expert, because I describe everything as an artist anyhow, or a vision. But to me, when I heard that sort of perception of our body, I thought, now we're getting somewhere, because that's how I see the field. Like in our field, we're always bathed in something, and depending on what we're putting into it is what we're being bathed in. So if we're bathing our field sort of in a vibration of love, it's got to come back and bathe back, because we're taking care of just not us, the field. I told my kids this lately, and we can end, but I told my son, it was pretty funny. I said, if you mess with the field, I said, you poke at the field, it pokes back. I said, what I'm trying to teach my children, as you run into to me, the mainstream person has a really loud thought pattern. Like if you sit with them, their thoughts are jumping around, but if they're trying to get something from you, they kind of get focused. Who wouldn't? They're talking with you. And I was trying to explain to my son, I said, so let's just say, people are talking, they're sending energy towards you. And at least I'm trying to make this metaphor,
Right.
I said, so now they're gossiping in front of you. I said, the normal thing is, because we're taught, gossip is bad, to sit there and go, they're gossiping, I'm not going to listen. So bad, I'm so good. I said, but that's really not what you're supposed to do from my perception. I said, what you have to do in the field is just put up your love, because this might be a family member. Everybody makes, everyone's gossip, but it isn't something to bathe in every day for certain. It's horrible, but a person doing it, you've got to let them have their space to it. And I'm trying to explain to my son, I said, so when they start doing that, you have to be very careful, because your mind will want to monkey in and do what you've been taught to do. And I said, you have to sit there and just allow them to be. So you learn to be in a presence with someone.
Yeah.
Don't engage it. Don't poke the field, because the field will poke you back. If you start the field, it will keep bouncing around. But if you just allow people to be, I think there's a lot to learn from that, letting things be.
Yeah.
Pass, because you'll see what the good people will stay, or the old people that had a hard time, they'll come back into place too. Because
and the ones that don't belong with you will dismiss themselves.
Exactly. I think so too.
Yeah. I think that you're touching on something that I refer to as nope. Nope is your superpower. NOPE, like nope.
Yeah.
And you just say nope. You don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to start shit with anybody. Just make the intention nope, and then just sit there. But don't shake hands with it, and don't invite it to dinner.
Right. Yeah. And these things matter. It matters who we pick to be in company with, and to even have conversations with, if they're really deep conversations. I used to have a conversation with anybody on the street that would listen. And what I've seen.
You're wasting your energy. They're depleting you.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. And it doesn't, it's not as helpful as you think, when you get on the mission. It really isn't.
Do you have any awake people in your physical reality?
I'm sure many of them would say they are. And I would hate to judge anyone that, it's kind of hard for me to say. Mainstream, people are mostly in my reality,
Okay,
they
me
could.
too. I'm just curious because a lot of us are coming together from different corners of the world, and
Yes,
we're so separate. But I feel like we're anchoring light for the grid where we are. So it's
yes,
needed. And then when you're needed somewhere else, you will be moved and you won't be
yes,
able to stop it. You're going to be moved.
that's right. I believe that too. Yeah, so I think that there are some people that are going through their own awakening. I would say
Right.
I only have two. At the max, awakened, it would be two, and there's probably more like,
I think we're constantly awakening further and further and further.
yes,
I don't think it ever stops, quite frankly.
yes, I don't think so
Yeah.
either.
Has your diet changed since you've
Really,
awakened?
recently I don't eat much of anything, maybe a meal a day and coffee, and I know
And
that's
what
not
would your meal look like?
my meal would look like a bowl of beans and rice and be happy with that. I'm not
Okay.
eating meat is, by choice. I live with people that do eat meat, who serve a lot of
Are you
meat.
vegan?
Am I vegan? I have been on and off. I'm just not eating meat. If it shows up in my reality and it's going to hurt somebody's feelings if I don't eat it, and I have people like that in my life, I'll probably
Mhm.
eat it. If it's beef, I probably won't. I will eat a little chicken, and it's, I don't know.
Mhm.
It's resonance. I've tried to do it lately. It doesn't suit me. So I've spoken to those people who try to pressure me. I go, my body's just reacting badly to it. So
Mm.
let's not try to push me on it right now. And
Right. Yeah.
I may start a fast. That's the next step, because
I've been called to do that too. I'm waiting to see to be energetically told when to,
mm,
because I think you have to like time it right when you don't have external obligations, because you really want to gift yourself that bubble of feeling like shit in your bed. Because
right.
let's face it, it's not rainbows and unicorns when you're fasting, but
No.
I feel like we're being called to detox.
Yes. And I know I need detox. I still have several habits that
And
aren't.
that's a religious thing, uh,
Mhm.
fasting so you can hear God.
Yes. And I know that I am working in that area where I want to be more attuned.
Right.
I want to know, I am already dangerous from the standpoint you don't want to try to you don't want
Right.
to you don't want to try to talk crap to me and tell me or lead me when at some point I'm not really leadable by others. I have to
Well,
I'm le-
absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. Yes.
I'm leadable by this field and what seems to be needed in my world, whether it's my
Your heart tells you.
yes. Yes.
Right. Wow. Oh, I love that. I could talk to you forever and ever.
Thank
It
you,
was so
Sylvia.
wonderful to have you,
Thank
and I
you.
hope to have you again. So we're going to end this episode and we will be back for more. I can't wait to hear from you again.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. You have a great evening. Be
You
blessed.
too. Bye, everybody.
Bye.